Alright, welcome back. First of all, if you haven't gotten an Omega Key yet, go watch the previous video as that covered the first few, while this will cover on the remaining 7 that we can actually get right now. If you haven't gotten the first few, then buckle in. There's no time for Minecraft, let's go. At this point for a lot of these, I'm going to skip the debate of, well, what key do we do next? Because they're just a lot more straightforward than the previous ones. Case in point, our next key is definitely pink, because we just unlocked purple editing, so the one that's gated by pretty much just purple is definitely next. And furthermore, this salvage is isolated to its own level, so there's really not much room for shenanigans of door choice. Anything we need is going to be in here. Now, for actually opening said door, we've got to get to exactly negative 314 purple from one open of our chosen and edited salvage. There's really only one door here that we could realistically use to do that, which is the huge combo blast cyan in the bottom right. So we can salvage that, and now we just need to figure out exactly, what to do to it to reach negative 314 with an open of it. It's a no-brainer that the spin needs to go on purple, and then we can basically just subtract the largest key count until no more of that space remains. For example, we need to lose over 400 purple, since we'll be having 100 purple to open the door. Thus, some basic math shows us we need 4 of the locks to be purple. That leaves us with just 14 more purple to remove, and the process is all the same for it, and pretty easy. Negative 10 from one orange lock, and then minus 4 from 4 white locks. Thus, once the edits are made, we can grab our 4th Omega Key, pink. Another fairly blatant one next, with cyan needing negative 50 pink. In terms of the salvaging, you can give a quick glance yourself, but regardless, there's really gonna only be one door that can give that many pink at once, which is the 100 lock cyan in level 1. Can edit that to spin pink, which will let us get to negative 100 pink, but we do still have a blank door afterwards, meaning that we'll have to find some way to get rid of the remaining negative 50. Much like last time, you can look over them yourself, but regardless, there's only going to be one answer that could get rid of that many pink, which is the negative blast green in level 3. Unlike pretty much all the other salvages thus far, this one actually takes a little bit of effort, so I will bother explaining it. You need negative green while having access to the salvage point, meaning we must take the bottom path to cross, as in our original solve. We also have to not touch either sign flip green until we've opened the salvage point up, thus we need the negative 16 orange from the left to cross as well. But we do need access to one sign flip so we can actually go negative, which can be done with either one, it doesn't really matter. Either spend your 3 red below before starring, or star red and spend a couple orange before grabbing the negative ones. Either way, the point is that we want to end with 0 red so we can star at 0, that way we can open the blank at the end. But with all of that in mind, it does just effectively boil down to this. You open the blank green at the start, open up one of the sign flips, star at 0 red, grab your negative orange, then walk to the salvage point, hit your sign flip, and salvage the door. By editing it to be entirely pink, you can thus spend the negative 50 that you have remaining afterwards, letting you open the blank door at 0 keys so you can get our 5th Omega Key, cyan. This also means we've now unlocked our next poke, World Omega. I won't be covering that yet, but I will mention that the last poke will be for getting all the remaining Omegas, so that will be our last time that we're going to be here in the lab for a while, at least for the pokes. Now, next up is a very exciting one in brown. This is our first key that can really make things a lot more sandboxy, more than they have already somewhat become at least. We're going to need nearly negative 1 billion cyan for this door, so clearly we're going to need masters. And now, thanks to being able to get cyan into the hub of T2 thanks to the Omega Key, we can actually do the secondary way to level 3 salvages, which doesn't require us to keep a blue salvage there. But first we do need something that can actually get us negative 8 cyan to start us off, which thankfully is pretty trivial via, for example, a blast door with a pink lock and cyan spend from level 5. With that, we then only have one option that can get us negative masters from level 3, being the bicolored pink and gold in the top right. We don't even have to edit the door here since we already have free access to positive pink, so we're pretty much done down here. So moving beyond that, we now need some doors that we can copy to effectively exponentially grow our cyan count. To quickly go over the salvage options that we have left, we have 3 from level 7 and 1 from level 5, ignoring level 1 since there's really nothing that we can do there that's useful. Again, level 7 offers a very clearly useful door in the intended to be sign flips, but they need to be finagled to actually work, similar to how we use them to start off our journey to the purple key. We make the locks spend one color to gain a different one. And in this case, since we already are locking with positive pinks and now have access to that omega as well, we can have the locks as pink and spend on cyan. Then to actually make it the cycle that we need, our only real option is an all or negative blast from level 5, cyan lock, and a pink spend. Thus, we'll first get a little cyan to open the door down to level 3 salvages, then get our masters, and then we'll open the combo door up top to gain negative 2xl pink on cyan, and then open the all door below to gain a negative 1x cyan on pink. We can then repeat this until we finally reach negative a billion, and then we'll finally have our brown omega key. Next we'll get black because of just how easy this is now. All we need to do is change the spend on the negative blast that we salvaged earlier to brown. And since there's already negative 4 pink lying around, we don't even have to do anything more than just taking those, opening the blast, and then opening the door to get our black omega key. And we have one more freebie up next in green. Now that we have black, this one is just utterly trivial, as we can just salvage the one lock stone like we did in the original solve, and just change its spin to be black. This obviously gets us negative 1 black, thus we can just get one more key for the lab. Next up, we're going to shoot for blue. We need to clear a whole 274i black to go down to exactly 0, and since we have no negative masters available through any spins, nor a single lock Aldo, we are gonna need to get a bit more creative. The only way to get rid of that many is via the black idol itself, salvaging it on 27, then salvaging it again on 22 in the hub. So first things first, let's salvage it. We need to reset 22 to being a blank black so that we can open the blank to access the salvage point, which thankfully is trivial. After that, we can just open the blank black that we made, spin the 6 black or first into picking up on the glitch doors, and then access the salvage point so we can grab the idol. Once that's done, now we just need to both access it and open it. And thankfully, now that we have all of these omega keys, and a 12th and 8th stone key, this will be a lot easier. Firstly, in terms of opening, the easiest way is almost certainly with a white lock, since we have that rotor key up there anyways. If we can get there with at least 137 white, which is trivial, we can just open it with white to salvage on 22, and then edit it back to having a black lock once it's actually salvaged. And upon theorizing, there may be some other way to get that many eye keys of some color, but this is definitely the easiest way. And in terms of getting there, we need some negative cyan, which again, there's definitely multiple ways to do it, but I just opted to salvage one of the white doors right at the start, then edit its spend to be cyan. Thus, we can just get cyan off of that. And last but not least, while we have 12 stone naturally now, making things significantly easier, we do still need to spend effectively 13 to access the salvage point as well. Our only real option to gain stone beyond the way that we did originally is through an edited glitch door in level 2. Specifically the combo ones that have all locks, since we can thus edit them to cyan locks, and since we'll have negative of those anyways, and then we can open them at some point once the state is set to stone. And now we can put it all together, clear your black with the eye door, gaining the negative cyan right off the bat. Then we can open the 1 lock stone and glitch door to get enough stone to open the 12 lock and salvage what we need on 22. Then duplicating our white with what's naturally here so we can lose 256 white while still holding on to 137. Hit the rotor key, and finally head up into the top right so we can salvage our eye door on 22. Once that's salvaged, we can edit the lock to black as mentioned and head back into level 5. Then, once there, we just grab our 274i black, gaining another 6 black along the way, open all the black doors, including the 2 3-lock glitches, and finally, access the blue omega key. And with that, there is now literally only one omega key left for us to get. which is red. I saved this for last because while I'm suspicious it might be possible before getting the other two auras, mainly due to the exactly -425 green and -10 blue provided in their respective corners, it's certainly easier with the Omegas. Number one and most obvious action is just changing Salvage 23 to the red eye door instead, but beyond that, the main issue is just getting past the blank white. As per usual, I'm guessing there's multiple ways around this one, but I opted for this. Since we can't go down to 0 white and easily get back to a decent count to use to get green and blue, we can use brown again to instead change the blank to a brown. Then we can just get rid of those. Since we already have 3 of our salvages used, it's going to have to be the door from level 4, which thankfully is indeed a negative lock, and moreover of a count that we can easily clear with the existing doors. That, of course, being the 10 and 2 white ones in this case. So, we can change the lock to green or blue, since we'll be getting plenty of those, and of course, the spin to brown. Beyond that, the other salvages are just extremely simple, not even really needing to change the doors that we have down, just their locks and spins to be taking white and giving green and blue. So to put this into action, first get your red eye, then octuple your white count with all the funny combo doors, get your negative green and blue, open the way up to the blank white, then grab your brown, coast the blank white, and spend all your 12 brown on the 10 and 2 white doors. Finally, you can just walk straight to our semi-ultimate Omega key, but don't worry, we're not ending it here. With all the main keys now acquired, there's now only 4 more to go: Glitch, Stone, Master, and Pure, all of which are within the Garden of Dreams. So, with frankly nothing else further to discuss about how to get these last ones for now, let's get into this area. Since we now have Omega keys, we're going to be expected to get up to some door editing to pass these levels. And in this case, we need to clear 18 white, 16 orange, and 30 purple to leave, using edited versions of those mini cyan doors that are above us. They come in various shapes and sizes, but the most you can ever get rid of in one open is 9. Now, a very important aspect of the logic is given by the name, which is a pun. You need to get things to fit together in a way that doesn't make the salvages fail to instantiate, as otherwise you won't be able to actually use your desired door. We can see this because of a few things. Firstly, we've got 64 keys to get rid of in total. We can even just imagine this as all being one key type, just to reduce mental complexity. Okay, great. Now notice how these doors we need to open are done. They're all exclusively taking 1 locks, in the medium of this combo door. Okay, cool. And now lastly, look at the dimensions of the space that we're working in, tile-wise. It's an 8 by 8 grid. And given how these doors are made, the most keys that we could ever get rid of with this grid is 64. Identifying that one trick is what really unfolds this level. It's not as extremely obvious compared to similarly spirited levels like the various pick-a-paths, so to speak. But knowing that here means we know we have to fill that entire space. There cannot be any failures to instantiate, nor unsalvaged stuff. So let's lay out the bare minimum ground rules then and fill in from there. 35 cannot be wider than a tile, since both of its salvage points would fail. 36 can't be wider than 2 tiles, as it'd fail to place in the top right. 37 can't be taller than 1 tile, nor wider than 4 due to the top left. 38 can't be taller than 1, and lastly, 39 can't be taller than 3 tiles. Thus, using this in tandem with our known rules, we can first place 38 as having to be the 6 wide cyan, as that's the only way to hit the tiles in the top left corner. Similarly, this then carves out 36 into being first as the 2 by 3 to fill in the top right. A few things are made clear off of that, but the most blatant is 35 having to be the 5 tall one, and that then shows that 37 must be 4 long, and lastly, 39 is the 2 by 2. So now, how do we color it in? Well, first let's focus on the spinning colors. Since multiple doors are linked by sharing an SID, we know that each type of door will end up having the same spend. Having that in mind, the easiest place to start is definitely 37. If it were white, we couldn't spend all of them as it would leave us with 2, which we obviously can't spend. If it was purple, we'd still have to get rid of 14 more, which again, you can see can't be done without wasting a door or more. Hence, it has to be orange. For the other two colors, you actually have some choice in the matter. White can either be assigned to ID 36 alone, since 3 times 6 is 18, or give it to 35 and 39. Either way, purple gets the remainders, it's just up to personal preference from there. And now for our final bit of editing, if you try to just finish the level as is, you can't, because you can't reach the top left ones, specifically from ID 37 and 38. This is where the sign flip cyans I've yet to mention actually come into play, as it can let us stand on a door for just a moment with negative cyan, but still can open it later by switching back to positive. Our jump height allows us to scale about 4 tiles at a time, but we can bonk our head on the bottom of a door up to 6 tiles above, still allowing us to open it. So with this in mind, we can decide on which door to use as a stepping stool for those, which will end up being either the 4-lock or 6-lock, depending on your choice of white door. Either way, this also means changing the locks on 38 and 37 to be entirely one color other than cyan. It's probably just best to have it be the same as the spin though. And that way, we can open them regardless. So with that finally done, we can actually do this level now, which I'll let play out. Well, this looks awful, but some of that awfulness isn't actually an issue. All of these I keys at the start are basically just to make sure you can't use those key colors for much of anything, at least with regards to actually solving the level, which the flavor text for this level not so subtly implies. As for the level, while there's certainly a lot to look at, we can at least know that our salvages are going to be relatively simple, even if the modifications we make to them may not be, as all 3 of our salvages here are going to be some variant of our door on the left. Said door will remove 1 of some key color, needing 1 of some key, and 0 of another. Regardless, we can immediately grab the copies of it, and then start working on the actual meat of the level. To start, we're immediately given an assortment of basic keys, as well as -3 master and -4 pures. We need -1 master for the end, so we can have 2 copies throughout this entire level. Because of that, as well as being forced into having at least some of every other key that exists, besides glitch, the blanks on these salvage doors will need to be one of the 4 colored keys that we were given. That means the first color that goes to 0 will have to be via the glitch exact key. Furthermore, the others will all need to open a salvage that spins their color, since all of them are an odd number and all the doors here, besides our salvages, are even. That's effectively the basics of this level, so now let's actually work out how to start on this mess. Since pink is our first blank door, it must take the glitch key. This blocks us from picking up the purple eyes that are scattered around, which is pretty much a good thing since it limits our choices. We'll have to take the top route to get over there in the first place, since there's no way to gain real pink besides the blocked off exact. We'll have to star our pink and proceed over. Now, we have to get there while the state is on pink and we're unstarred. That means spending another 2 orange, which brings us down to 5 now, and now we have to stop everything to decide what to actually do about white, which indirectly ties into purple. And to cut to the purple, since that's arguably more important, we start at 39, which is unspendable as is. We thus need to gain some purple, which can only be off that bicolored orange. That brings us to 47, which can be very neatly divided up by a master copy of the 20 lock, and opening the white 6 as well, plus our salvage of course. But that bicolored orange needs -8 of it, while a -6 lock looms right behind it. By the time we could get there, we'll have already spent 12 of our 15 orange that we start with. If we simply open the 2 lock orange, and hypothetically our salvage, then we'd be unable to open the bicolored later, because we'd only have at most -12 orange there. And thus, we need another -2 orange. So in other words, we need to master the bicolored pink, using our final copy up. We can also see that orange needs to get down to 0 using salvage 43 up top, since that's the only one that's accessible as of now. so we can set that up as well. It'll use an orange lock and pink blank, since the latter is basically just going to be following the blank door's order that we have below. Now, to actually tie this back into white, because we have no copies, we have to get down to 0 off what we have here, plus the salvage. There's a total of 28 white worth of doors, and effectively 24 spinnable white available, and only 4 right now. Since the unstar white isn't gated by much of anything, we can just use our star to open either the 4 lock or 2 locks, either way unstarring afterwards, and then can open the others. And to finish off the white discussion, since we need the 20 white to start removing purple, we know the purple salvage can be behind the 20 lock white, and thus white behind the -8 lock orange, using blank white and orange respectively. And surprisingly, with all of that, we've effectively just solved the level. Everything else is relatively trivial stuff that anyone who's made it this far can recognize without even really having to think about it, like taking the orange sign flip at 0, or taking the pink eye exact before either the 0 or 24. That way you actually have some spinnable pink. But regardless, all of it will be demonstrated right now. So to begin, clear the top row where pink is starred and open the 2 lock orange. Then go star right, open the 4 lock or 2 locks and unstar. Then you can open the other white that you didn't. Open the 2 lock pink, unstar, go to 0 off the exact, and go clear 1 orange up top. Then go spin your final 2 orange below and hit the sign flip, as well as grabbing -10 more orange. Add a copy and open both of the bicolored orange pinks, then go open the bicolored purple on the bottom half, as well as the one up top if you like after adding a copy. Open the -8 orange and 1 lock white, then grab your 20 white from below. Finally, open the last bicolored purple to send that down to 1, and go open the 1 lock purple to finally reach 0 so we can leave this level. Finally, a level that doesn't scare me upon going into it. The end goal for this one is having 0 pure and cyan, as well as getting -3 cyan at some point and losing the pure we get at the start. Since there's no doors with a pure spin, we'll have to clear them all via the -pure key pickups. That reduces what we even have to consider though, thankfully, as that means the only keys we're dealing with is cyan, orange, and presumably brown. Additionally, this means that every door will have to be opened, no matter what. 2 doors we start with on the left remove 15 cyan, while the other simply changes the state to cyan, not adding or removing any since it has a negative and positive 1 lock. Furthermore, we literally cannot open any doors until we lose 15 cyan from the bottom door, so our question is, how do we get rid of these? 3 are guaranteed to be removed from the -3 lock towards the exit, leaving another -12 at least. There's many ways we can get rid of those, including salvages, but ultimately, since we have to open all the doors anyways, it would have to come down to the -8 and 4 lock that are already here. And furthermore, because of that, we'd have to get positive cyan after opening the -8, then sign flip to spin the rest. This thus implies brown, because while it was given as a potential red herring, there's no way to then salvage the 2 lock until we get brown, at least without wasting cyan. We can easily gain brown off one of the negative doors, so we'll assume one salvage is one of those to gain brown. With the salvage made, this effectively locks us into a brown route, since by doing this, we'll also need a way to lose brown, potentially even going negative. Since this would obviously have to take place after going positive, and there's really no point in wasting the combo cyan on the top left, we should just place the positive in 46 and negative in 47. Because the salvages are now roughly found, we can tell we must spend 7 brown on the 2, 1, and 4 locks. This forces either the -20 or -8 to be our way of actually gaining brown. Once these doors are opened, we'll still need to open the 2 -20 locks, which thus means getting rid of brown. However, this also means opening the last door that can change the state to cyan. So, we'll have to coast a glitch to preserve the state on cyan. And since we already know we have to spin 4 of the cyan on a positive lock, and we start with negative, we would have to preserve with the glitch door. We'd then go negative off of our secondary salvage, and uncoast it and open the doors. Now as for the door to actually remove brown, that would have to be pure, since literally anything else here will just be coast upon approaching it. and then it could only take you down to 0, at best. And since negative brown being in excess is harmless anyways, this means it's just perfectly fine. And additionally, this is basically all we had to figure out. With our salvage identified, we can take either the -20 or -8 door with an orange lock and brown spend to gain brown, and then a pure 15 for the other with a brown spend. And with that all explained, since it's not a terribly complex chain of events, I'll just let it play out rather than narrating it. Alright, working backwards for this one, let's focus on the auras first. We obviously need to end up with positive of all of the aura keys, but with only 3 salvages, that means we're going to have to make each one count. So there'll actually be enough to get us what we need. In other words, this basically means that we'll have to have at least 1 lock for each aura color. This also means the only keys we'll be able to work with beyond what's here are said aura keys, limiting the choice of locks to those, as well as black and technically brown. Now, for the actual levels logic itself, since we need to open all the salvages at some point, the exact 0 black is going to be first. On a similar note, a full lock black is gated behind a 0 black, which would require gaining some black somehow, or potentially mastering it if dealt with standardly. The former is impossible, requiring a salvage to spend black, which obviously can't be done, but the latter seems potentially possible, so let's dig into that a bit more. Obviously, it does require presumably 0 black as well, but more notably, it requires 3 blue to clear the effect on the pure blank. So the key to understanding this is going to end up being 3 green, ironically, which stands out due to needing 5 keys for its aura to work. Even with copies, this can only be obtained by the -5 brown door. This is because the sign flip is itself gated by positive green, which obviously excludes green from ever being negative, and also excludes blue, because to even get to that sign flip we need to master the 12 lock while it's cursed, which requires positive blue from the start as well. So now, wrapping back around to the 4 lock black, that effectively gates it behind having negative keys if we want to open it with our master, which by process of elimination would have to be red. We'd have to gain them from the salvage 48, as anything else there would be unopenable, but that could only give us at most -4 red, which would not be enough to open the -5 door to actually gain green, thus showing that it is in fact impossible to get past that 4 lock with the master. So we have to open it with black. And now that we figured that much out, the only remaining way to open the blank before it is by cursing it, and then spending our singular brown on the 1 lock master so that we can actually open it. Then notably, since we deduced that green and blue have to be positive to begin with, red still needs to be negative, and thus we must also curse and master the 12 lock to eventually sign flip our red back to positive. And now back to black. The other related problem is the blank at the end. This forces us to be at 0 after taking the -5. Since we can't spend these on a door, the only answer to lose them is from the exact key. This means that the only choice for salvage 48 is the -5 door, since we need to be gaining our green before the exact. As for the other salvages, we know we need to lose at least 2 red before we can gain blue, since we'll have lost our -black already. So 49 can be safely placed as a 4 lock, green lock, and red spend. And finally, to gain blue, in retrospect I would actually recommend salvaging this one first, as upon setting up what we have, you can see it's actually supposed to be the -2 door to avoid uninstantiating. but it is still doable by temporarily changing 49 to give brown, then copying it to gain -8 brown and salvaging the -5 again on 49. This gives us easier access to that door, so we can then change 48 to something easy to get past, like a 1 lock. That way we can just easily walk through there to get the negative master and salvage a copy of the -2 black. And then once that's done, we can just pretty easily return everything back to the way that it was. Either way, you want to set the new one up to spin blue and take red as the lock. And now we can solve this. So first, grab your brown, coast the blank black and 12 lock, then spin said brown on the 1 lock. Open the blank brown and spin your 4 black to grab -5. Get 5 green from up top, then get however many red and blue you chose, inevitably using your negative master in the process. Go get your positive master key and then open up the glitch sign flip. Then you can open up the lockless red to set the state and sign flip it, and finally, you can leave the level. Oh boy, it's math time again. This level isn't terribly complex in terms of how you actually set it up. We're going to have 3 copies of that 3x3 all door, which needs to end up getting us to those counts at the end. This means that similarly to the last level, each color needed to leave gets 1 door each. And since each door is consecutive, that means we need to find out the exact order of opens, and that one of these counts has to be obtainable from the first door, while the others will factor in the other counts that we gain afterwards. So to try and pinpoint how we would begin, let's go from biggest to smallest. For purple, we need to lose 504 purple, while the most you could lose off of the first door is 297, so it's not purple. For white, 266 would mean gaining exactly 271 white. The most we could gain from a first door, though, is 45, hence white is definitely not it. And thus, by process of elimination, orange is going to be our first door. For that, we're going to need to lose 57 keys, and now I have to be honest, I gave this a genuine effort to solve this off some math equation or whatever, but I frankly do not know the technique for it. And moreover, upon checking the wiki to later fact-check myself, even they suggested just brute forcing the numbers of lock here. So we'll set up a very basic equation and then just kind of plug and chug with the largest factor at play. So in Orange's case, we will be, running through however many locks we assign to purple, and then adjusting from there. So for this one, I threw 2 metaphorical locks onto purple, spinning 66. That took it down with a couple whites to 56, and then I just kept adding and subtracting via each lock, one at a time, until eventually it settled down, ending up at 57, which in total ends up taking 2 purple, 2 orange, and 5 white locks. With that, we'll then have -49 orange for our next door, so once again testing the remaining 2 for viability, we can see that purple still needs way too many positive keys to work, so white will be our second door. And now that orange is our largest number, once again we plug and chug, just performing a very similar process to the first. Since we need 271 white, as mentioned earlier, let's see what we can do to get there. So, and to be a little bit more scientific about it, I started by checking multiples of 49 until finding that the closest to 271 was about 5 or 6 times. 5 didn't quite work since, being a multiple of 5, we couldn't reach something ending with a 1 without taking too many keys. Hence, I investigated 6 instead, and then there was only a few locks left because 6 were taken up already, so 1 had to be purple to actually get it over the line, and then after that it was pretty obvious that I just needed 2 whites to reach our count. So, in summary, for white's door, we need 6 orange, 1 purple, and 2 white. And lastly, purple is the only one left, with thus now having 266 white for that one. Here we need to gain -504 purple, so again, same process. Started with a couple white, which is fairly close, leaving 7 other locks, then kept subtracting and adding, jumping around the number, but ultimately it just didn't add up in this case. So instead I just tried 1 white, which also didn't work. But then I tried 3, which did upon enough checks. So our final door consists of 3 white and 6 orange. And now with all of that done, we can just very easily walk through this level. And with that, we've actually done everything that we can in this world for now. With no Stone Omega found, this means we're going to have to look elsewhere to get that stone key. And while we did unlock a new world, the Lockpick Horizon, it requires 4 levels to be completed to qualify for a stone key, but there's only 3 accessible right now. This leaves only one dangling thread. Whatever that monolith was talking about earlier, something close to Kina's heart. Well, it just so happens Kina's got a new hint for us on what to do next anyways, so let's hear her out. So we've got a woke with those new salvages that we found, but more interestingly, there's something in this room. Well, checking around, there's nothing towards the left or above, but then there is something there. And what is down there? The new salvage's output points. Seems like whatever we salvage needs to be openable so we can grab the Eye Master below it, repeat until some ultimate door for whatever purpose. But what was all of that about Kina's heart? Well, physically looking towards Kina's heart, you might notice something familiar, and by hovering over it, that will confirm any suspicions. That is going to be our next goal. I'll see you next time.